So today we are going to be talking about SMART goals and SMART documentation. So what is a SMART goal? Picture this. Your executive team hits you with a supercharged message around a new focus for the business. It's probably something like growth, profitability, retention, and we just know that means more customers, more revenue, and better retention. And then you're probably thinking, awesome, more promotions for me or my team, more pay increases, and better career experiences. Let's do this. But then you realize, wait a minute, I need a plan. And you definitely do need a plan. And that's why we've got you covered today. But first, you need to understand what a SMART framework is, quite literally. So what is the SMART framework? Before I jump into it, does anyone know what? Oh, I guess I can't do that because you already changed to the screen. Surprise! Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. That's what a SMART framework is. And it's essential for aligning companies to departments and departments to people when it comes to projects, processes, and performance. It keeps projects moving forward, helps with accountability and timing, and lets you know that you're making measurable impact on the business. So, TLDR, SMART goals get SMART results. So, the S stands for specific. What exactly are we trying to achieve? The M is measurable. How will we know we've achieved it? The A is attainable or achievable. And is it realistically possible that we can achieve this? The R is relevant. Does it align to your company vision and revenue growth? And the T is time-bound. So when do we want to achieve this by? Pretty simple, right? So let's dig into these a little bit more. Specific is clearly defining the goal with minimal words. The more specific you can be with less word usage, the more likely it is that people are going to understand what the goal is and how they can move forward with it. Be specific about what you want to achieve and always identify who, what, when, where, and why. The next one is measurable, and we're going to dive into this much more deeply in this session. But at a high level, it's establishing criteria for measuring progress and success, quantifying or determining how you're going to track the progress, and setting clear targets or milestones to assess those achievements. And if that sounds like a whole bunch of gibberish, don't worry, because I'm going to show you examples, and we're going to take a closer look at that. A is attainable or achievable, and it's setting realistic and attainable goals, considering all of the available resources, skill sets, limitations, risks, and ensuring that the goal is challenging, but it's not unrealistic or unlikely that you're going to achieve it. The R is relevant. So the goal should align with your purpose or company objectives, evaluate the significance and impact of your goal, and make sure that the goal is relevant to you and it's usually your company's growth. And then we have time-bound. So setting a specific deadline or time frame for achieving the goal, breaking it down into smaller time-bound milestones and tasks, and regularly reviewing and revising your timeline so that you can stay on track. Okay, so SMART goals lead to SMART projects, systems, and processes. So let's see this in action. The first one is a company goal. Here's what it sounds like. Increase efficiency and revenue, right? So we had an executive team that says, this is what our goal is. We're going to implement a trackable process, documentation system, so something like Attainable, that includes step-by-step instructions for all key processes, and create an understanding of our best practices as an organization, reducing errors and inefficiencies by 30% within a year. So that's what the company charged you with. And so as a department leader or a contributor, you're saying, okay, well, I need to break that down because 12 months is a lot to wrap my head around. So let me break down that into a department goal that's achievable for my team or for me as a contributor, which Shawn is going to jump into. But let's look at department. So the goal, again, we're breaking down this 12-month big grand company goal into, okay, I want to improve our onboarding as a component of that. In the next 6 months, so half, like maybe an H1, H2 type of model, I'm going to establish a comprehensive onboarding and training program supported by detailed process documentation, resulting in a 50% reduction in the time required for my new hires to become fully productive. So we're going from company to department, and then we're going to go into the individual contributors and the plan behind this, which is really where the magic happens and the results happen. So before we move into that, any questions so far? I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you as far as how the framework works. Give me a thumbs up.
We got some
Makes
thumbs
sense
up
so far?
going.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. So let's look at the plan.
Okay. I'm going to hop in here real quick. So before I do that, before I talk about the plan, I want to get a feel real quickly for how long you all have been using Trainwheel right now. Just out of curiosity, just you pop that into the chat or unmute your lines, let me know. Just get a feel for where we're at. So we got Jennifer, 2 to 3 years, a couple of years. Awesome. Okay. A year, a little over a year. Nice. Got some old timers here. Nice. This is great. Jasmine just barely signed up. Awesome. Yay, we got, there we go. Yeah, I love the flyer there. Okay, this is great because wherever you are in this process of getting Trainwheel, for example, rolled out to your team, that may be the initial rollout. Like Jasmine, this is what you're kind of heading towards. For those of you who've been around a little while, you've already done some of this rollout to your teams. I'm going to share a little story real quick, and then we'll jump into this framework. So when we started here at Trainwheel, when I started, I was employee number 9, okay? And we had, at that point, we were in a small room in the downstairs location in some little office in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I had just been hired, and we were about to hire our 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th people. You know, there's a small team. And we were just passing this threshold into, hey, we're going to turn into teams now rather than individuals doing all the things, right? So Chris Ronzio got us together, our founder got us together in this little room and said, hey, we need to really start documenting our processes and practicing what we preach, right? We've been doing a lot of things. We have some things documented, but we're going to go full force with this, all right? So what he did, he said, look, what we're going to do is everyone is going to spend a certain amount of time each week to document their processes, okay? We're going to spend that time, and that's going to be a regular time we meet up with and we check each other on every single week. And it was funny because after the first week, we got together as a team to recap what we'd done, and we had established that we were going to spend 1 hour per week, or 2 hours per week. And we got our first meeting, we met together, and Chris was like, all right, how many of you, let's talk about how many of you have been documenting your processes? And I raised my hand, and I was like, yeah, but I'd only been there for 2 weeks, so I didn't have a lot of processes to document. It was real easy for me, but not a lot of other hands went up because we were busy doing the business, right? We're busy doing our thing. So he said, let's refocus. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're doing this. Everyone's spending 2 hours per week to document their role. Okay, we're just getting it out there and into Trainwheel, and that's what we did. And we kind of had this regular, consistent approach to accomplishing the goal of documenting all the things for all the people that were there, so we'd be ready as we continue to scale and grow. Right? So that's the story. Now here's the plan that kind of personifies that takes these principles that Mallory's been talking about and puts them into play for us. So here we go. This is what it looked like. Okay. So we're gonna take that 6-month time frame that we want to have this all documented, have it ready to go, and we're gonna break it down into smaller increments, what we call milestones. All right. So here's the first milestone is months 1 to 2. Now this again is perfect for you, Jasmine, as you're getting started here. But for those of you who've been around, there's probably other things that you're still needing to roll out. And I'm taking the example of rolling out content in Trainwheel. This could be anything that you're working towards to accomplish in your business, right? So here's our first milestone. at the end of this first 2 months, we want to be able to have all of our content fully and accurately documented. Okay, that's it's a measurable goal right there that we want to achieve, a milestone. And then we have established together the tasks that need to happen to make sure that this is realized. Our first task is to establish content standards. We want to make sure that across the team, we know how content is designed. And there actually is a template for this in Trainual. If you did not know, it's called Content Design Standards. You look that up, and we'll send you the information for that after this session today. But there is a template that will help you to establish what your content design standards are. That way, everyone on your team knows what the standard looks like, what subject titles need to be, what topic titles need to be, how you're going to use emojis and GIFs and that kind of thing, okay? We're establishing those content standards. Our second task is kind of like what I mentioned a few moments ago. We're going to spend 2 hours per week documenting. Now, I'm going to emphasize here that we're not looking for prettiness, okay? We're just simply getting accurate content documented. We want to make sure it's there, it's all there, and it's accurate. That's what we're focusing on during these first 2 weeks. The prettying it up with videos and everything like that, that's going to come later. Our accountability is, like I said, what I mentioned, weekly team meeting. At that weekly team meeting, we're going to get together and we're going to take a quick peek at what we've been working on. We're going to talk about any stumbling blocks, any troubles that we experienced, anything that we want to share with the team that could help us continue on with our goals. There is our first milestone for months 1 and 2. Okay, continuing on. Here we go. Next milestone for months 3 and 4 is to, now that we have our content fully and accurately documented, now we're moving on to enhancing that content. So this is the point where we're going to start looking at it and going, all right, it's all accurate, it's all correct. Now what can we do to make this more interesting or more effective? Maybe that we can add some explainer videos. Maybe we can add a little bit of text, of highlighted text. Maybe we can add a GIF here that walks someone through a process. So this is where we're going to spend that time, and an ample amount of time, to make sure that those things are able to take place. Again, spending 2 hours per week to accomplish that. We're in a rhythm at this point, and the accountability is our weekly team meeting. So we're able to come back together to identify, hey, what are the stumbling blocks? What are the things we need to be working on? Any help and support from others, and we're staying on track. That is the biggest thing that will make sure this happens, is the consistency in the accountability. This is something I've worked with a customer very recently, where they had started, and then with this consistent pattern, as soon as they stopped the weekly meeting or the biweekly meeting that they were having, the productivity on that documentation went down. So it has to be a consistent action, as well as consistent accountability checks. Finally, our third and final milestone for months 5 and 6. Now we've got the content in there. We've got it prettied up. Okay. Now it's the last couple months, which takes a little bit of time to do this, is to go through and to finalize all the content. Make sure everything is in place. Make sure the content standards have been held. Make sure there are effective tests or quizzes or the other things that we decide to add to increase the value of that content. And then we're going to beta test this. We want to try this out with a small group of people to kind of get their feel, their take on it, get some feedback from them before we roll this out to the whole group, to the whole team, to everybody, right? So we'll probably get a few of the newer folks on the team, have them go through the content, get some feedback from them, maybe through some interviewing, maybe through some surveying, and then use that information to help us go back and refine the content that we have. And then we go into our final reviews, which will basically be reviewing all that final content, make sure that it's meeting all the standards and it is ready to officially deploy. So those are our milestones for that first 6 months that we've established. And Mallory, you being the SMART goal queen, how are we doing here? How is this helping us to get to where we want to go?
Amazing. As a former PM, I think we are on track and we are good to meet our goals here. And I think it's important to, as you go through this, we're obviously using a documentation process oriented example because that's who we are and what we believe in. But as you go through this, there may be other goals that you are working on in your organization. So feel free to take these concepts and mold them to the things that you're working on as you go through this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought that up. I think about, I mean, let's talk about a few different scenarios where this really could be in place, like building a new team, right? How do we establish? We know we're going to need to create more a bigger sales team. How do we set the goals and targets for make sure that happens? This framework applies there, right? So I love that you brought that up. Right?
Absolutely.
All right, so there is our plan. So really, we need to make sure of those that it is somewhat measurable. We need to make sure this thing is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? So I had it back over to Mallory to kind of talk through that.
Yeah. And before I jump into how we measure our results and our achievements and successes, do you have any questions about how you attack your goals with a plan?
Or what are you currently doing to attack those goals? Okay, I love this. What Jennifer just popped in there in the chat. She said, I love this as a guide for writing emails with directive tasks. The smart details could be used to just communicate the goals out. I could certainly use this in trainable content, but just another use case. Yeah, I love that. Great idea.
Yeah, we can definitely send you this. And I can even maybe think about how to send it in a one pager or maybe a public share link or something like that that's beneficial to you as well. So we can certainly take a note of that. That's a good call out. Yes, yes, that is a huge takeaway for this. Always tell them the why, and they're more likely to understand it, engage, and find purpose and value in it. Absolutely. Great call out. All right, so let's move on to measurement. So there are two areas that I see teams struggle when it comes to setting SMART goals, even just project planning in general, and it's simplicity and specificity. That is such a hard word to say, but you get my point. Specific and simple. And the second one is measurement. So today we want to talk about measurement because I think Shawn kind of walked through how to keep it simple, how to keep it specific and on target with plan. And that's what leads us to talking about measurement. And I have some tough news for you. Results equal reward. I know no one wants to hear it. I'm sorry. It's the truth for the business and for you. So while you might be motivated by bonuses and salary increase, promotion, just career experience in general, your organization is motivated by revenue, growth, profitability, all those catchwords, retention, you name it. But your goals remain the same. And so in this case, our goal was 50% reduction in the time required to get new employees fully up to speed. So if we can solve this and we can save money and you can rock this out, that's going to look really good on a performance review. And it's going to look really great when the company's reviewing profitability and all of those good things, and retention probably as well. So the next question we ask ourselves is, how do I measure this and prove the results that we're seeing? There's a lot of ways that you can do this, and it varies drastically across different industries, but I think these ones give us some really concrete examples that are typically applicable to many industries. And so that's why I'm talking about these ones today, but just keep your mind open to the possibilities. So the first one is time to productivity. We're measuring the time it takes for new employees to become fully productive before and after implementing the documented processes. Again, the examples I'm using here really relate to our example here, but feel free to think about these in your mind as it relates to maybe goals that you're working on or planning to work on in the second half of the year. So then we're going to calculate the average time for both periods and compare the reduction in percentage. That's time to productivity. The next one could be surveys and feedback, which is a personal favorite of mine. I love open-ended feedback. I love rating feedback, multiple choice feedback. There's like so many cool ways and Typeform, and I'm trying to think like SurveyMonkey. They have so many cool ways now where you can vary the experience as people go through to make it fun to collect and provide survey feedback. So conduct surveys or gather feedback from new employees who have completed onboarding for their role and responsibilities. Ask them to rate their preparedness, understanding of processes, and overall satisfaction with the systems that are in place. And then you're going to compare the ratings before and after implementation. I used this a ton in prior roles where I was in continuous improvement. And this one really spoke volumes because it was coming directly from the people who were performing the duties and were the heart of the organization. So seeing their scores increase with the improvements was really the best proof we had that our outcomes were what we expected them to be. But again, there's a lot of tangible metrics that you need to show for your executive team as well. And so we can dive into those here in a minute too. So the next one is performance reviews. Assess the performance of new employees at regular intervals. So this might be monthly, it could be quarterly. You could even do like mini assessments at your one-to-ones if they're newer and need that, higher touch point. And then compare their performance to the performance of employees who did not have documented processes and look for improvements in productivity and quality of work. The next one is employee retention. This one's kind of self-explanatory, but we can talk about it for a minute. So we're going to measure the retention rate of new employees who have completed the process training compared to those who have not. If the program, meaning our training program that we've implemented, is effective, you should see a higher retention rate among employees who went through the proper process training than those who haven't. And then we have cost and time analysis. This one's super popular and really gets us into that numeric metric that we can own. And this one would be comparing the time and cost spent on onboarding and training processes. Again, you can apply this to anything before and after implementing our documented processes. And we're looking for reductions in training hours, processing hours, associated expenses, resources, all of those good things. And then the last one is just general business impact. And we're analyzing the impact of documented processes and training on overall business performance, assessing if there are improvements in team productivity, quality of work, customer satisfaction. So maybe it's like G2 scores, Capterra scores, just your general feedback if you've got a product, or if you're in the NPS world and you send out NPS surveys. There are a lot of ways you can do this. And actually, with NPS, you could also do this with employees as well. You can survey them too. But any other relevant business metrics would be business impact. So the goal of SMART documentation is keep it simple, keep it specific, make sure that your team can actually achieve it, and hold them to a before and after metric. That way you can show that everyone was successful. The business was successful, your team was successful, and each contributor was successful, and everybody wins.